We are going to continue now with our ongoing budget review discussions for the upcoming fiscal year 2016.
Yes.
Juliana.
Yes, we have two items for discussion this evening. First is staffing, and this will be presented by Ms. Danielle Ruggiero.
I need magnifiers now.
Oh,
Good evening. Thank you so much for letting me come tonight to speak about the staffing request that we're making for the 2015-16 school year. But first, just a moment to brag about our staff. And you know I like to do that often. We have approximately 1,600 highly skilled employees serving our school community. We have a wonderful team of teachers and education service professionals who are counselors, therapists, child study team members. Over 60% of them holding master's degrees or higher. We have 18 with doctorates. We have an outstanding staff of support professionals who foster the healthy development of our students, including our child nutrition staff members who work so hard to provide nutritious and economical meals for our students, our bus drivers who provide transportation safely and with a smile to our students, our security personnel that ensure our buildings and our schools are safe, just to name a few. We have a dedicated team in our early morning programs and after-school programs to ensure that our students receive quality childcare in their own school environment, while also receiving homework help and recreational opportunities at an affordable cost to our families. The outstanding programs that our districts provide in our Blue Ribbon schools continue to bring people to East Brunswick. We have identified a small number of positions that are necessary to ensure a smooth operation of our programs and support the growth. As you're aware, Sharon Oliskevich came in and presented to you a few weeks ago about our needs and our growing population in special education. But staffing needs frequently change. I'm going to touch upon some of the requested positions that we have, and if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. At Churchill Junior High School, we need two new science teachers to accommodate class sizes. Our class sizes are quite large, and in order to ensure safety in the lab setting, we're asking for a teacher at each grade level there. At the high school, and this was touched upon a few weeks ago, our sheltered learning experience and community-based instruction program is just exploding. You saw our students a few weeks ago come and talk to you about their work experiences, both in the district and outside of the district. We are requesting an additional teacher to accommodate that program. In student services, excuse me, we're asking for approval to increase the district's half-time athletic trainer to full-time status, which would give us 2 full-time athletic trainers, which would provide a greater assessment and care of student injuries during competitions and practices. For example, on a typical fall afternoon with practices and events, there could be as many as 18 teams practicing or competing on our school grounds. If an athlete is injured, the trainer is tied up either on the field or in the trainer's office while all other students continue to play or compete. On many occasions, multiple sports are taking place. There's a wait for students who need trainer assistance. The work week of an athletic trainer is not a typical work week. It's not the same as a teacher. It extends well beyond the school day and often until the weekend activities. Over the last 20 years, we've added 12 athletic teams representing dozens of students. This past fall, we had nearly 600 athletes compete in grades 8 through 12, not to mention that they are across 2 campuses. So it makes it difficult to cover each event with the current staffing that we have. We're very sensitive to concussion awareness and hydration and other things that concern student athletes. Our trainers are responsible during the school day to complete paperwork and to educate our students on these topics. And then again, they're responsible for all the after-school activities. Large districts such as ourselves quite often have 2 trainers at the high school level without taking into account the middle school. Those are some of the positions that we have. You have the complete report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. But before I turn it back to you, I just want to thank you for the respect and the appreciation that you show to our staff, because they feel it and they very much appreciate it, and so do I.
That's any questions? Mrs. Shaw.
I was kind of interested in some of the pending requests, those that have not been tentatively approved at this point. At what point in the budgeting process are we able to make a determination as to whether or not we can include any of those pending requests?
Well, we have been working through that, and we're prepared to have our discussions with the Finance Committee Thursday evening. The positions that are recommended and have been moved into the approved status at this point have moved, so there were changes to the report that you've seen. So we'll be presenting those at the upcoming meeting, once we've had the opportunity to discuss the finance.
And then will we have another opportunity at an open board meeting to discuss those?
Absolutely. This would probably be an opportune time. I wanted to go through a reminder for the board in terms of process, so I think this is a great segue, so thank you, Mary.
You are so welcome.
You're on the same sync
And-
here.
Okay.
And what Mary said, you will send us on the computer the documents for the upcoming finance?
Yes,
So we know what you're talking about?
yes, absolutely. So let me talk about for a moment, if I may. Well, how about if we defer what I'm going to say for Ms. Ruggiero? Let's have any questions for Ms. Ruggiero first, and then I'll talk about process. I think that would be best.
Well, I mean, if I can continue, I mean, one of the things that I found very interesting was the administrative internship. I wondered if you would just be kind enough to give a little synopsis for folks in the audience.
Sure. So, we've been looking for ways to give our staff an opportunity to learn and grow. And we do a very nice job, I believe, of growing our own administrators at a very low cost, because it is just the cost of a 6-period stipend. It's not a whole position. It's not a number of positions. It's just a period, giving an opportunity for a teacher who has administrative aspirations and perhaps either holds the certificate or is working on it, to perform non-confidential administrative duties. And for example, something with scheduling or something that's not confidential and not disciplinary in nature. We've, previously had some assistant principal positions in the elementaries where we were able to give people an opportunity to learn and grow. We don't have those opportunities, so we were looking for low-cost, effective ways to try to give people an opportunity, while also low-cost ways to give a little bit more support in the buildings.
Okay, all right. I mean, I do think it's, a very innovative way of trying to deal with the problem. And obviously, we'll need to have our finance committee, kind of hash that over. But I think it's a very interesting response to, a need that we have. Another one that I wanted to comment on was the curriculum chairpersons for the elementary schools. I had an interesting thing happen on Friday, the 27th, which was the day that was Read Across America Day, and also Lawrence Brook School was going to entertain an author that day, and so I went over to Lawrence Brook School to find every student being evacuated from the building at that particular time. Gratefully, everything was found to be safe and sound. However, rather than get to read to the kids over at Lawrence Brook, I got to listen to them conduct themselves in a sing-along with their music teachers. And anyway, it was a great way for the kids to pass the time. But what I want to comment on is the fact that had Beth Warren not been there, had Jeff Lesser not been there, the principal was not in attendance at that point. I'm not sure why. But anyway, there was some concern as to how well our buildings are administratively handled when the principal is out of the building. And so I felt that everything went quite smoothly that day. I don't know necessarily that a curriculum person is the answer to this, but I do think that we need to have, some real discussions on how the elementaries in particular, will be covered in the principal's absence?
Mrs. Shaw, if I could answer that, that was something that we addressed early on, beginning of this school year, and we do have a set structure in place. So we literally have all hands on deck approach. We have assignments from the administrative team. If we have an absence at a school, the elementary school specifically, where we don't have any other tiers of administration to help in a principal's absence, we have somebody in that building covering, because to me, it's important that we have somebody there.
And
That's
it was
why-
actually clear to me,
Right.
when I was at Lawrence Brook School, that there were staff members who were, basically taking charge. But when you talk about a situation where you need to evacuate the entire building, when there's still, 18 inches of snow on the ground and everything else going on, I think it would have been difficult for just lead people at the elementary school to have handled that type of situation.
Correct, and that's why we do assign people there, and we basically take our work and we go to the school, and that even includes me, because I have an assignment at Central School if that's where I need to go. So we just relocate our offices if we have to do that. That does impact a number
So,
of things.
it was
That was
not
Jeff-
just a coincidence that Jeff and...
No, he was assigned there.
Okay, but I thought that they were there because the author
No.
was visiting the
Jeff
school
was
that
there,
day.
Jeff was there covering the building.
I see.
And Beth was there because Beth tries to get out to a number of the buildings. So she was there and, supporting people in the buildings, but the actual assignment was Mr. Lesser.
Okay.
So we make sure that happens, and one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about that is that we have to have people that have the authority to make decisions on the ground if something happens. But when we have people that are assigned, that aren't full-time people there, that we do have to make sure they understand the specific protocols of that building. There are things that are district-specific, but there are also things that are building-specific. And so we try hard to make sure that there's interaction between the parties that go out there to cover, that they understand where things are, who the go-to people are in the building. So when they're there by themselves, they understand what has to be done, and they can direct the staff there. And that's essentially what you saw happen with Mr. Lesser there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Phillips?
Danny, when when anyone brings different budget requests to the Board of Education, they usually do it by department. But I wanted to thank you because your budget for staffing is, and I don't know if anyone realizes it, it's for everybody. It's for every department in every area. So I thank you for the passion that you give when you make those requests for us and are able to explain to us exactly what we need to get done. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
You know, we remember very well the severe budget cuts of 6 years ago. And, we know that that was what we had to do at the time. We are very careful when we make budget requests so that we are listening to every school and to every department the best that we can, while being mindful of the limitations that we have. And I believe that the things that are in the budget are the things that are important, the teaching positions and the positions that directly affect our students the most and are the most needed to keep running our schools at the high standard that we expect. We do have other items that we're requesting, and we're realistic that, we can't have everything we want, but I appreciate that you see a variety of things, because we do try to be mindful that, it can't just be one school or one department benefiting from, a shift in staffing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. McAvoy?
Ms. Ruggiero, do you, with regard to the internship program that was just talked about by Mrs. Shaw, do you see, there's two interns you're looking for? Or is it one?
I have to look at the budget report.
Let's be hypothetical, let's say
Sorry.
there's two.
Yeah, not full-time release, it's.
No, no.
yeah.
So,
It's a-
just follow where I'm going
Yes.
with this. So, these interns on the elementary level would be certified administrators?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were referring to the request from the secondary schools. Are you referring to the elementary department chair people?
Curriculum person. Well, that's,
Yes.
that's my second one. The
Oh,
first
okay.
one was
Which
the
page,
internship.
which
That's-
page are you on, Kevin?
I pulled my notes, I just have my notes here.
Page 31 of.
So the administrative internship is on page 31, that's,
Right, that's
Six-period
Churchill.
stipend assignments. Mhm. At the secondary, right.
Secondary level.
Yes,
Strictly secondary.
yes,
So then that person could not go down to Hammersholt and fill in.
right, because that person has teaching responsibilities in the school where they are,
Right.
and the sixth-period stipends would allow for that person to have release time to do non-confidential administrative activities.
I mean, in my hypothetical, we could possibly see that person taking over for, numerous times people have gotten sick, and then you've had to go out and contact former principals who would come in and take those positions. Do you see this person as being able to do something like that?
I don't,
Okay,
because.
that's okay.
Okay.
You don't need to explain.
Oh, no, okay.
Yeah, because
Sorry.
I know the workings. With regard to the curriculum, the curriculum person at the elementary level, I see that as progressive, dynamic, and exciting, because what we have at the high school is every department has a curriculum chair. At the junior high school, every department has a curriculum chair. At the middle school, we have a singular
It's the same
curriculum
person.
person.
Yes.
And at the elementary level, we have coaches who are in curriculum leaders, but now you're going to have a person who all of the elementary people can go to for assistance, and I really credit you for that.
if I may for a moment, it's important to note that with some of these, and again, these are in the pending section, there will be a number of these that will not make it into the base budget.
I'm aware of that. Thank you,
I
Mr.
just wanted to reiterate that.
But since you did quasi-interrupt me, the affordable healthcare person, that's going to be a staff person in your office?
That would be in finance, but we're not making that a priority at this time, which is why it's listed as a priority too. That is wholly dependent upon what happens with the Affordable Care Act in the next year to 2 years. So
So-
depending upon the burden
Right.
that act places on us and the
Right.
responsibilities we will have to go with that, it may require a half-time individual. But at this time, we don't see that as a top priority. It's for the board's awareness.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Oh, sorry, Mrs. Howard.
Yeah, on page 33, there's a requested position of human resources coordinator. And I would just like to go on record as saying I strongly encourage us to put that in our tentative budget, because 6 years ago, we had to lose charity. And we have 1,600 employees, and Danny's doing that all by herself. She has secretaries, but I think that's a position we need. That's all.
Yeah, we
We
feel
talked about
strongly
that.
about, yeah.
I
that
feel
is-
very
Yeah.
strongly about that.
Thank you.
And it isn't as though we haven't had any changes in evaluation or anything like that that might cause us to,
Our evaluation responsibilities, even for non-certificated staff have grown tremendously, because we've added so many staff members with
Right.
our community programs division, and also we do staff the EB PAC on the weekends. These staff members need training, they need evaluations, they need scheduling, they need hiring, they need criminal history checks. So we keep growing, and we love growing. We love to add people to the team, but it does get a little
Yeah.
big at times.
Mr. Shaw, I do have to make a
Huge.
statement. I have to add something to my commentary earlier about the building coverage that that I think is very important. When we take our administrative staff and we ask them to go cover a building in another person's absence, we do impact a very, very complex and tight schedule that Mrs. Gulick has created and managed for teacher evaluation, for observations and evaluations. And I've got to tell you, our staff does a phenomenal job of doing very comprehensive observations and evaluations. I have looked through many of them, and it is not just a rudimentary process. It's very complex, it's very thoughtful, a lot of feedback's given to teachers. And I just wanted to make the board aware that that burden has increased exponentially this year. The number of people that get observed and evaluated, and especially our non-tenured staff and people who are coming up for tenure and making sure that the right decisions are made to offer the right employment to the right people that represent all of what East Brunswick Public Schools is about. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And I feel sometimes like we're dealing a lot with a limited administrative staff, and I know that doesn't seem that way to the public or to people from the outside, but based on the workload right now, sometimes we have that conversation, we wonder how we get all of it done. But we have a very dedicated staff that does it.
Well, and having served on the evaluation committee, I am appreciative of that fact that, things have really changed significantly.
Yeah.
Under the new evaluation system. And I'm really, really happy that, East Brunswick has put together, under Mrs. Gulick's guidance, this evaluation committee that allows staff members to really be an integral part of the decision-making process and, how all this is going to be put together. So that I don't think, at least that's my impression, that I don't think there's any immense fear on the part of our teachers and other staff members that this new system is going to impact them negatively.
And the public should also know that in the time that we've now had to increase the responsibilities of the administrators to do all these evaluations of this very large staff, we haven't added administrators.
No.
And that was a public concern, that they thought that we had too many administrators, which we don't, but we haven't added. So to have a little help, I don't think is an unreasonable request.
And I just want to add, as someone, new to the board, just been so amazed at, the quality of the work that goes on through the staff, the dedication that everyone has shown. I've just been so amazed.
Thank you. We have really a stellar staff. We are so lucky that exceptional people want to work in our district, and some of them are here tonight.
Yeah.
We do appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
And I do need to give you a little credit. I think one of the things I've found, even from talking to teachers in other districts, is that the reason that everybody wants to be here is because we have such a positive culture. And any organization knows that the strength of their organization is often built on the culture. And a negative culture can be so toxic and can drag an entire corporation down. And but a positive one is an environment where people want to work, and they want to work at their highest level. And that, to me, I think is really the tribute that goes to the administrators and people like yourself who bring in quality individuals, and a staff that expects excellence, and we get that. So
Thank
you deserve a lot of credit.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, that all sounds nice. Any other questions? We'll move on to the next budget.
Yes, and before I get into the next segment, which is a
Thank you,
review
Danny.
of debt, I want to get back to the process of what will be occurring in the next several weeks and month. So we've been having our budget discussions at every board meeting where various segments of the budget have been presented. On March 19th, which is next week's board meeting, will be the time when the board adopts a tentative budget. And that is a budget on which we will have further discussion. It puts the full gamut of the budget into play, if you will, for conversation. We will have every board meeting from March 19th through April 30th. to have discussion, answer questions, opportunities for tweaking to the extent that that may be the desire of the entire board. April 30th will be the public hearing on the budget. That will be held here. And then the final budget adoption, which will be the budget on which we will function in the next fiscal year, that vote takes place on May 7th. That is our meeting, that is our big meeting over at the EB-PAC. May 7th is the date for final adoption. So we have up through May 7th to have conversations, well, hopefully before May 7th. If we're at the meeting on May 7th, we need to have the numbers buttoned down. But certainly to April 30th, we have about a month and a half at this point to engage in discussion. I anticipate, once we're through with our finance meeting this week, that the budget binders will go out to the board probably Friday. And so you'll have the entire scope of the budget at your disposal for review.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Oh,
Next.
now on debt.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know this is a very exciting topic for some people and not so much for others. And the next segment of the budget is on short and long-term debt. You have a report that covers two segments. The first portion is on short-term debt, and basically what that encompasses is any debt that we have issued that has a repayment term of 5 years or less. And I can see just how excited Michelle is. So, yes.
Yeah, she's gonna be ready for student loans pretty soon, so she needs to listen up.
That'd be long-term debt.
Yeah.
For her
Yes,
parents.
Okay, we're gonna hear about both of
Good,
them,
yeah,
right?
we will get there.
So the short-term debt is debt that we have issued for items that have a repayment term of 5 years or less. Some examples of that have been some facilities improvements that we've taken on. It includes equipment, vehicle replacements. We have built into this budget a regular schedule of replacing our buses. For example, we'll be replacing five buses in the next year as we had planned for the current year, and that is an ongoing process for us. Vehicles need to be replaced. Capital, as I mentioned, in terms of facilities improvements, we have funds to perform some facilities improvements that we are not out on a bond, for example. They allow us to get some work done on a year-to-year basis without issuing a major bond. So in this, and small equipment items, there might be musical instruments, as we've done in the past. Many of the things that we try to do is based off of a plan, and we've developed many plans that carry us forward from year to year. And we continue to do so, so that we don't have what I call blips in the debt. We try to maintain a relatively stable debt pattern so that there are no adverse anomalies in the budget. With regard to the long-term debt is akin to a mortgage on your house. That's the best example that I like to use. And it is the essentially the payment on bonds that have been approved by the voters in the past. So what would those include? Those would include renovations that were done to the high school for the expansion back in, I think that was in 1996, when the front of the building was added on, two-story segment, and a couple of other pieces off to the side for the music education curriculum. It includes the expansion of Churchill Junior High School. That bond was approved, I believe, in around 2000. It includes the bond referendum that covered the expansion of the Central Lawrenceburg and Hammersholt schools. There was a lease purchase, a commissioner-approved lease purchase agreement for the replacement of roofing at the high school. and most recently, the bond to build Memorial School. Those are the components that comprise the long-term debt. And long-term debt, once it's paid off, it falls off. So there are a couple of components that I want to speak to about this. First, we will see in the long-term debt segment that there's a slight increase in the payment. That's a result of the payment structure for the existing debt. It's not due to any issuance of new debt. This next year, there'll be a slight increase in that payment, and then the next year, it will go down again. So it's not a straight line. It kind of has some slight peaks and valleys throughout the term. That's simply a function of how the debt schedules are derived. It's called level debt, but it's not exactly level. It's close to level. The important component that I think the board needs to be aware of, and it doesn't affect the current budget, but this is in terms of some longer-term planning and longer-term thinking. We have, in the next 2 to 3 years, a couple of bond issues that will be expiring. And as you know, we have a lot of things that we still need to do in the district. We have renovations that are still necessary at the elementary school. We have some elementary schools that have gymnasiums, others that don't, that they share that space with the cafeteria. We have a high school that's never been fully addressed. We've done that in little pieces, but it is an old building. That building is over 50 years old and needs a lot of work. Churchill Junior High School. That school, when we did the major renovations on that school, one of the things that was not included was a roof replacement. That entire facility needs a new roof. So I can go on with these items. The bottom line is that as we plan, it's good for us to keep in mind that we certainly don't want to add to the debt burden of the community, but as these debt obligations are paid off, that we look to reissuing with a specific plan in place on the things that need to be addressed in districts, so we maintain that level debt. So that's the food for thought that I'll leave you with.
And what does our independent auditor say about the level of our debt?
Our level of debt is very low. I don't have those stats in front of me, but I know that's a topic that Mr. Philipsak has enjoyed asking about for several years. And we are not nearly close to what the level would be. I can get you that data for the next meeting, but we're on the low side in terms of our debt issuance versus what we would be permitted to issue.
Okay. And would we also be able to explain to our community whether or not their taxes would be changed in any significant way by not taking on some of these construction and improvement projects?
We could quantify that. I can't do that for you at this moment, but
Right.
I could definitely quantify that as we have those conversations, yes, absolutely.
And, you know, and I'm not necessarily even looking for, you know, a specific dollar amount, but more just in terms of, you know, I mean, we live in a town where people complain about the taxes all the time. And, you know, I think as board members, we understand that it's our responsibility to maintain, really in every way, the buildings and facilities that we have. I mean, I think that's an important responsibility that we have as board members. But I also think it's important for the community to know, hey, if we don't do some of those, is it really going to make much of a difference in our tax bill?
Right.
Yeah.
And if it is going to make a big difference for the community, then that gives us something else to think about.
Very good. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Philipsak.
To add what Mary just mentioned before, it's not only the effectiveness and the efficiency of using the long-term debt, but it's a subtle nuance of the balance with the state requirements also. Not just the outside auditor, but the state, the Department of Education also puts, not caps, but suggestions on what is good for different districts to actually carry a healthy and efficient debt. And we're nowhere near any problems as far as the future, presently, in any way.
No, not at all.
Yes, just as Mr. Giuliano suggested, we do have aging facilities, and that becomes the complex issue for the board, is that facilities do continue to need immediate attention, even as we change our instructional programs. Just minor things that people take for granted. The furniture in the classrooms, nothing to do with technology, just the furniture. The traditional way a classroom was set up has completely changed. Now we need new furniture for students to be able to collaborate together. So those kinds of things really impact the day-to-day operation of the district, too.
I'd like to add one other thing, if I may. This just popped in my mind as I had seen an email just a day or two ago from Standard & Poor's, and they rate us as they rate any entity. And as you know, the state of New Jersey was recently downgraded in terms of its bond rating. I'm not sure if it was precisely this, but I think it was lowered closer to a junk bond level. Not a good situation. We have, as a school district, an exceptionally good bond rating. If I remember correctly, we are at AA standing, much higher than the state of New Jersey. We maintain a good history, and that's not something that we would want to compromise. So, when we talk about debt, it's important to maintain a balance that does not compromise our integrity insofar as our financial leveraging is concerned.
As well, a good rating keeps our costs low, so our debt financing cost is better.
Absolutely.
So I had a question. You mentioned, food for thought, there's a bunch of upgrades that should be considered. What's the process by which we do that? Obviously, it seems like just from the things you rattled off, there's a bunch of things that need to be done. Is there a master list somewhere that someone is prioritizing, and at what point do we get to take a look at that?
We do that through Buildings and Grounds, and we identify the projects that are coming up. And Buildings and Grounds is the committee that vets those first. So we run that through the committee.
Didn't we see not that long ago a master list?
Oh,
It
yeah.
was
115 million or
Because easy to
something.
remember, because it was our
100
one-year
million,
budget.
yeah.
Right.
We could spend money on absolutely nothing else and
Yes.
just do that.
Yes. And one of the components related to what you're asking about is the long-range facility plan that we're waiting, as all school districts are waiting right now, in the Department of Education's direction for for preparing the most up-to-date long-range facility plan. And that is a plan that is supposed to reflect what the district's needs are and needs to be updated from time to time throughout the year or years to reflect changes that occur. So we've been waiting for probably the last year now. It was supposed to start about a year ago. It has not begun. There's a process that we would need to go through in terms of assessing facilities and so forth. And by the way, it's not just construction, it's not simply adding on to buildings. Some of this is infrastructure. It's electrical replacements, plumbing replacements. We have needs to improve bathroom facilities for students in the elementary schools that haven't been touched since the schools were built. So there's a lot to do. But at any rate, I digress for a moment, but in terms of a plan, that's part of what would help to guide us, is the preparation of that long-range facilities plan, and use that as part of our, template, if you will, in terms of projects that would need to be done.
Very good. Are there any other questions about that? I think that was also part of the planning, is demographic study that we had done that helps us use that as a guide to where we need to do some of the projects and focus our work. And then the strategic planning committee, which is going to set the 3 to 5 year goals, all of that will come into some master plan, and all those things I think need to be worked into that. Okey doke.